And welcome back to Continual. It is a special marketing episode of Hot Off the Press. And so we're back for part two, and I'm here with some fellow authors and people that are usual suspects. So I'm going to ask everybody to introduce themselves. I'm going to go in reverse order this time. So, Stuart.
Hi, everybody. I'm still Stuart Jaffe from part one, and I still write the Max Porter Paranormal Mysteries and all kinds of urban fantasy and action fantasy and that good stuff.
And Jeanne.
And I'm still Jeanne Adams. I write urban fantasy, paranormal romantic suspense, and space adventure with my friend Nancy Northcott.
And Gail.
Yeah, I was Gail Z Martin last time, but now I'm Morgan Bryce. No, really, I'm both all the time. As Gail Z Martin, I write epic fantasy, urban fantasy, steampunk, and more. And as Morgan Bryce, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. So it's all good.
And I'm still Jim Nettles, and I write nonfiction and articles and all sorts of copy. And I write fiction as James P. McDonald and a couple of other names as well. So we're going to dive into marketing part two. So marketing part one, we dove pretty heavy into building marketing, building brand, and starting to layer a foundation. So kind of wrapping up pieces that we didn't get to. One of the things that we haven't talked about so much is about how to use live and in-person type events, whether it is you're at a convention, you're at a book sale, you're at a book signing, or even something digitally like this. How does that start to fit into your marketing? How does that fit into your brand? Seeing people, meeting people, shaking hands, that sort of thing. So let's start with the in-person side first. Gail, we'll hit you up first.
Well, I'm going to invoke Wheaton's law, which is don't be a dick. Whether you are in person or whether you are online, don't be a jerk. Because people buy from people they like, know, and trust. And I think we have seen some very high profile situations where even beloved multi-billion sale authors have managed to totally screw things up for themselves by turning out to not be nice people. And readers notice. So we hope you are a nice person. At least fake it in public, because people will remember, and this is your chance to make it right. And as our friend, John Hartness always says, you are on from the time you leave your room until the time you come back to your room. Every interaction, whether it's being in line with someone, being in the elevator with someone, trying to resolve a problem at the hotel desk, you are on. And so be on your best behavior, trot out your company manners, be a nicer person than you really feel like being at the moment if you're frustrated or upset about something. But that is a big part of your marketing brand. And so don't be a dick. Unless your name is Dick, and then you can be Richard.
Well, don't forget too that at any convention that's an in-person thing, you're not only on for the public in terms of potential readers, but these are all your peers are there too. And so if you act, there are publishers, there are editors, you act poorly and you might be costing yourself jobs. And if you act well, I know everybody here has probably had this experience where in one form or another you left a convention with anthologies that you suddenly are now a part of just because we're there talking to the right people and they trust you because you're a nice person, you do the job. So that's another reason to to follow Wheaton's law.
Well, it's like anything else. If you are at an event, you're selling you. It's not necessarily the last book. It's not the next book. You're selling you, your reputation, your career. And, that's one of those things of you're meeting with, not only potential readers or fans or editors or agents or publishers or other people. It's all the above. And it's yeah, you're going to show different aspects of your persona at the time, but it's also that thing of being consistent over time. And when, what do you do?
And I would add to that, all of this is absolutely, yes, don't be a dick. Please remember that you're selling yourself as much to other authors and editors as you are to readers. But the other thing too is, don't be all about you all the time. Mm-hmm. Don't be like, I'm Jeanne Adams and this is my book. You also need to be saying at your table, if somebody says, well, I don't really read that sort of thing. It's incredibly easy to say, oh, what do you like? Oh, well, then you might like Stuart Jaffe, or you might like Gail Martin's Morgan Bryce books, or you might like Jim's books. And if are you willing to be generous enough to send that customer who doesn't want your stuff to someone who does, they will return the favor. Most of them, the ones who aren't being a dick, will return the favor when someone comes to their table and says, oh, well, I don't really like urban fantasy, but I do like paranormal romance. Oh, well, you should go over see Jeanne Adams. It's happened to me dozens of times. And
sure.
So it's also keeping in mind that there's always going to be a customer who comes up to your table or comes up to you after a panel and says, oh, really loved your presentation, really loved hearing you talk, love the cover on that book. And they pick it up and they read it and they go, well, don't really do paranormal romance. Well, what do you like? Well, gosh, I can name 10 authors that would be great reads for you. And I've had people come back to me and buy my book because I directed them to another author. So sometimes it's just also, so totally what everybody said, but also having the situational awareness to also send them to other people. Because that gets anthologies.
Further on that is to recognize that your job is to be accessible and pleasant, even if they aren't. So, because you were talking about them looking at your book, I've had people look at my book and not just say, "Oh, this isn't for me," but really practically spit on, be just like, "Oh my," and
I hate this.
I have to still be nice, That's my job, is to still be nice and try it. Unfortunately, I write a whole bunch of different types of series, so usually I can go, oh, you don't like that? What? This might be more your style, or this. And then if they don't like anything, I can be like, well, you like erotica? Okay, you're completely wrong table. Let's get you where you belong.
Well, and we've all done a booth together, so we've all and sold each other stuff. There's and this is one of those things. You're not selling somebody a car. It's a book. No one single individual writer, short of maybe John or Gail, is going to crank out enough product and enough books to satisfy a real true reader. It's and everybody, so there's no sin in referring them both to people and that you trust as a writer and trust as a reader, to send a reader to somebody to read something they'll like.
Well, yeah, because they'll come back to you when you've got another book out.
Right.
I want to follow up on something Stuart said, which was understanding that you're creating relationships with the other authors. And I've seen this go both ways. I've seen people make career building collaborations, make friends that go on for years and that spawn books and series and all kinds of stuff. I have also seen people really cut their own throat with the way they have treated other authors. And if you do that, nobody's going to, message you on Facebook and go, hey, we're all having an anthology and we're not going to invite you. But there may be a conversation that says, we still need 2 more people. What about, oh, no, let me tell you what happened. Or let me tell you what they did to somebody else. It's not even what they did to that person. It's, oh no, I saw what they did to somebody else. And now that's just an opportunity you never hear about. So be nice, be a good person, help people. It's not that hard.
I think a lot of writers, especially since the explosion of independent, books or ebooks and indie authors and all that, there's this, even though by numerically there are thousands and thousands of more published authors than ever before. The thing that was true when I first started into this 20 years ago is still true now, which is it's really a small group of people. Mm-hmm. And we all know each other, or at the very least are maybe one step removed. Just recently on Facebook, one of our peers wanted to get a gift for his wife. He wanted to get a signed copy of something by Neil Gaiman, and he didn't know Neil Gaiman. He's like, I just put it out there. Can anybody get me in touch with Neil Gaiman? And within minutes, I didn't see anybody who actually knew him, but they knew his agent, they knew his buddy, they knew, we're all pretty close to somebody who knows somebody if we don't know them directly. And as a result, yeah, if you're wonderful, that gets around real quick. And if you're not wonderful, that gets around real quick too. Absolutely.
Well, and this whole convention
if I can, I'd like to take a moment though.
I was just going to say this whole convention got started with.
I was going to shift gears a little bit.
Go ahead.
Yeah. We're talking conventions, and the initial question was about how we interact with people, and it occurred to me it would be useful to our listeners to understand that there are different types of conventions, which actually, at least for me, and I know for all you guys too, brings with it a different set of expectations and behaviors from us. Yeah, all the time Wheaton's law is in effect, and everything we've said so far remains true. But there are smaller conventions and mid-sized conventions which are a little more laid back. They're the things that would have, they're more about panels and about gaming and about people meeting up with each other. And we're there hawking our books, but it's much more social as opposed to, say, something like Awesome Con or Galaxy Con, which are these things that are in these huge convention centers where those are the ones where you go and you get William Shatner's autograph, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people there, if not tens of thousands. And we're there hawking book. I mean, you're selling and selling and selling, and you still have to be nice and everything, but you're not on panels. You're really there to sell. And,
yeah, there are book selling conventions, and then there are panel and presentation conventions, and both have their place and both have their purpose.
Yeah. And then there's even the other level, like Dragon Con, which for some people is a sales thing, but for a lot of us is really more of a networking opportunity and an opportunity to get in front of a lot of readers, even though we're not directly selling at a table while we're there.
Well, and then I'd say there's also the seminar type convention, which is more of a teaching, learning, classroom kind of thing, where maybe like Saga was in March of 2020, where it was really about presentations on how to write, how to do things with how to create your book, how to get through the different steps of publishing. And it was much more of an almost classroom kind of.
Well, and one of the nice things about those is that you are not selling books per se, but you are selling yourself as someone who has an expertise. And that leads to a lot of book sales just because you're seen as a professional, provided you act that way. You're seen as a professional, and you're seen as someone who's serious about what you do and what you present.
Well, I mean, that's the reason I've been teaching a number of the workshops I have was from people I've met at conventions that come and say, hey, can you do the intellectual property? Can you do the business one? Can you do this one? Can you do this one? I mean, that's why I do a lot of the workshops I do. And that's where they've come from, is sitting in the bar and going, oh, can you do X? Well, yeah, in fact, I already have, and I teach this and this and this and this. So, I mean, it's all about how you build the relationships over time. And again, the other thing you wind up is you also build friendships with readers and fans and people you see consistently. I mean, I have a gnome over here in the corner because of writing a gnome book. and I get a lot of gnomes, which is always fun and always, like I say, it's always a great deal of fun when I get the next new one in. And it's why I'm writing more gnome books. But it's again gets back to getting to know people, whether it's other writers, whether it's the fans and everything else. And Gail, like you were getting ready to say, that's where this entire online convention came from for Continual. Was we had talked about things off and on for a long period of time about how do we do something, structure something, and then to get a text one morning going, so I did a thing.
Guilty.
And that's how this started, was who do we know? Because we're all sitting here and we're not at conventions, we're not in the bar, we're not doing all the things that we do. So how do we get that going again and keep this going? And we gave this a shot, and it's gotten a lot of traction. It's gotten a lot of traffic. We're continuing to grow as a channel, which means, here's shamelessly, go share this, plug this out to your friends. If you like it, share it out so other people get to see it, and we keep doing it. But that's how we got started, was who do we know that we can call and count on to come help do this and grow this? And now, we're looking at 300 different people have been on a show in 6 months.
And after a certain point, friends of friends bring friends. So when you look at the whole 6 degrees of separation, or 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, the whole idea of you aren't very far removed, like someone was saying about Neil Gaiman, you aren't very far removed from anybody. And sometimes amazing things happen, and that really famous person is also bored and goes, well, sure, I'll do it. And sometimes that doesn't happen, more of the time, but once in a while you get lucky. The thing is, you never know who the person you're talking to knows. Right. And man, that can go your way, or it can go so bad so fast.
Yeah. Which goes right back to Wheaton's Law. Mm-hmm. And don't diss other authors. Don't.
Or editors or agents. Yeah.
Even if you had a terrible experience, say that privately. Mm-hmm. Don't say it publicly.
No matter how much you've had to drink in the bar.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, that's always one of the caveats and cautions I say, is if you're at a convention and you are, as Stuart said, on, and as Gail said, you're on from the minute you leave the room to the minute you come back, do your drinking in your room. Mm-hmm. If you need to seriously have a couple more, do it in the room. Mm-hmm. Not in the panel, not in the bar. Because you are being watched. You never know who's watching you.
So, let's talk a little bit about digital panels. Really were not prevalent at the beginning of this year. I've done things with a couple of different online conventions in tech space, business, in book space, business space, and whatnot, but these really were not prevalent until 6 months ago. We've worked with some conventions and whatnot, and there's been a lot of this, but everybody's looking at it as a temporary jump, and that going by the name of Continual, the intention is going to be for this to continue on even after things do return to some degree of normal and in person. So, but what do you think the big benefits are, and even some of the challenges out of doing these virtual ones like this? I mean, obviously we don't get to do the hand sales at the counter after somebody comes and sees us on a panel, but you can run to Amazon.
I think that's probably the biggest downside, is that you can't talk to the crowd afterwards and go, hey, yes, I do write that, and oh yes, and come look at my book, and oh, you like the cover? Great. Well, take a look at the back cover and read the cover copy and see if you like it. You can't do those sorts of things. Yes, you can run to Amazon, but that's not quite as immediate as handing somebody a copy of the book. The benefit is, as Gail said, this is recorded. It's here. The other benefit is that somebody who has low mobility or poor health, but has always wanted to go to conventions, has always wanted to meet Gail or Stuart or Jim, they suddenly can. They can see what you're like in real time. And one of the panels we did for, I think it was for Con Carolinas, Jim, we had a ton of people. We had 70 or 80 people in the panel. Mm-hmm. And some of them were from, Australia and New Zealand, and people who would never have been able to come. And same thing that was with Dragon Con and several of the cons. There have been people there from all over God's green creation, and you just have no idea how long it's been since they've wanted to go to Con Carolinas or Raven Con or Balticon or any of the cons that we normally go to, and might never have gotten there otherwise. So I think that's one of the big, huge upsides, is that a lot of people can go virtually where they couldn't have gone personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And for all those reasons, as well as there are people who are just socially, would not feel comfortable in a building with, 1,200 people. And so as much as they want to meet you, they're never going to go. And so here they can. But likewise, I think one of the downsides of not having an audience is the interaction and the ability to answer a direct question, because we're going to talk about all kinds of things, but there's always that ability in a live situation to, after explaining something, for somebody to go, I don't understand this aspect of what you said, and which means 10 other people also didn't understand it. And I think you can give more information, more directed information to what the audience actually wants to hear about.
And yet there are ways around that, because now we're choosing for various reasons to record these panels and drop them later. But I've been on a number of live streamed panels at conventions and kind of at many ongoing things. And those are live. They're promoted in advance. People do show up and ask questions in real time. And then I was just a guest at Virtual Capclave, which was great because I haven't been able to be there in person for several years because of scheduling conflicts. And now I could go because it was virtual. Same with PhilCon. But Capclave had a Discord server set up so that, and they promoted it and said, if we run over and you can't ask your question, here's the room to meet us in. We'll be there for the next hour if you have questions. And some of the panels didn't. Some of them had a very lively discussion that went on long beyond when they said we could have the room. So there are some ways around it as we all gain some new skills and familiarity and comfort with the technology to say, okay, this isn't quite as simple as just raising my hand, perhaps, but I can still get there.
Yeah. That was one of the fun things that I actually taught a seminar class at Balticon, and we had some question and answers, but we ran out of time. So we went over to Discord, and that went on for almost 2 hours. The presentation was almost 2 hours. The Discord was almost 2 hours, and it was fabulous. Now, again, coming back to circling around to our topic, I don't know how many books that sold, but it got my name out there. It got me in front of potential readers. It got me in front of potential collaborators. So to me, that's totally worth it.
But the truth is, unless you have a table at a convention and you're hand selling, or you are cozy with the convention bookseller who will pull you over on Sunday and go, hey, nice work, we sold 10 of your books. Most of the time you have no idea how many books you sell at a convention, unless somebody finally pings you and says, I saw you on a panel and I went out and bought the first book and now I bought everything else in the series. Sometimes that happens. But most of the time, unless you have a table and you can track direct sales, and even then, sometimes not, you have no idea how many it sells. It is a marketing cost that you have to trust will pay off in the long run.
And sure, and likewise, you'll also, even if you do have a table and you're right there, I've seen it. We've all seen it where you're on a panel and you can see people tapping away on their phone. And I know for a fact, because I've talked to people afterwards, sometimes those people are actually buying your book right there. They're just buying an ebook, and so but you don't know whether they're buying yours or the guy next to you or the gal next to you. So yeah, but I do think in this digital kind of thing we're doing here, even more so, obviously you can't track any sales, so it's more about your brand, putting yourself out there, giving information, and hoping for reciprocation somewhere down the road.
Well, yeah, I mean, granted, I've shamelessly actually sold books during a panel before, but it doesn't happen often. But again, it's the difference between marketing and sales, and it's another tool. There's not, I believe, Gail, you said this in the last panel. It's we know 50% of our marketing efforts are wasted. We just don't know which 50%. The benefits of doing something like this, I think, are really that you get to reach an audience you wouldn't otherwise. Because I mean, again, if we're at a physical convention, if you've got bad timing or you're up against another panel, you might have 10 people in a room. And we talk about, well, at a bare minimum, we're seeing a couple of hundred people watch each one of these. And it's out there in perpetuity, and we can re-show it, we can rebroadcast it, we can do all these things. And then even if you're motivated, we can get you copies of it. You can use snippets of this in your promotion, your marketing. So video is one of the best ways of reaching people, period. We want to see you, we want to hear you, we want to know what's going on.
Well, and the other thing, and I come from a marketing background, and one of the things that's just axiomatic is that very few people buy on the first exposure to something, unless it's truly an urgency issue, like, help, I'm out of laundry detergent, I'll take whatever brand you have. That's different. But with something that is discretionary, like a book, the general rule is it takes between 7 and 30 touches before a window shopper becomes a buyer. And what are those touches? Well, maybe somebody mentions your name, or they see you in an also bought, or they see you on a panel, or a friend says that they're reading your book, or they see a blog that has a review or just a guest post, and maybe they come upon your name several times, but it's always a bad time. They're in the middle of a book, they've just bought 3 books, it's a long time till payday, yada, yada, yada. There are all kinds of reasons why people don't buy right now. And then all of a sudden, everything aligns. They hear about your new book, they've got a little extra cash, or they haven't bought all their books for the month, and they have a hole in their reading schedule, or it just sounds so good they'll put down what they are reading to do it, and now all of a sudden they buy you. And it looks like it's because of whatever immediately happened before that, but really it's a long trail of things you have no way of ever completely knowing that sort of made you familiar to them until they were ready to actually purchase.
But that actually brings up a great point that we touched on a little bit in the first panel, but is also sort of axiomatic, is because they may see you with the first book you write, but not be ready to be a purchaser for whatever reason. You have to have more than one book. You have to keep writing. And sometimes I know all of us as authors think we're shouting into the void. But I have known dozens upon dozens of authors who are on their 10th or 12th or 15th book, and they're like, I don't even know why I'm doing this anymore. Nobody's buying, it's nobody's reading. And then all of a sudden they put out the 16th book, and it's been just enough. That tail is so long sometimes of those touches and those times seeing you on panels. But then all of a sudden people are like, oh, I picked up this great book from this great author, and they've got 15 other books. I'm going to go buy everything. And then they tell their friend, oh, I just read 15 books by this great author, and I can't wait till they write the next one. And that person goes up and picks your book. So, I guess that's to say it can be very discouraging. No matter how many conventions you do, no matter how anything, for you to feel like you're not getting traction, don't give up. I mean, that's should be every writer's axiom, every author's axiom. Persistence, perseverance, don't give up.
And as we're writing this during November and NaNoWriMo month, don't give up.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stuart.
Well, I was just going to say that's the thing. You've all heard it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But I think for our industry, that's really, really true. And because the outliers are the ones that get the press, where somebody writes their first book and is suddenly a multimillionaire, and and all this, that people really think that's the way it's going to be, and that's why after 2-3 books and they're not making a full-time living, they're like, they're
what's wrong with me?
And the thing is, it's not. I mean, I always remind people that like the big names, some of the big names right now, like Brandon Sanderson wrote, I think it was 14 novels before he wrote anything that got published. Mm-hmm. And his novels are big, so that's a lot of words he wrote. It's just.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying it takes. You should go in expecting it to take a long time to build your business. If the stars align and you're one of those lucky people who shoot out of the gate and do great, congratulations. But that's not what you should plan on in your business plan.
Yeah, that's like planning on winning the lottery.
Yeah. I was going to say, Michael J. Sullivan tells a story about how, he had these books that he always wanted to write, and he tried to get them published, tried for a decade to get them published, and it just didn't seem to work. And so he finally said, you know what? I really believe in these books. I love them. It was early in self-publishing. So he said, I'm just going to put them out there and see what happens. And that's where he found his audience. And that led to big sales, led to contracts with big publishers, led him back out of contracts with big publishers, back to indie. So, and for all kinds of reasons. But the point is, at one point he just felt, this isn't going anywhere. I might as well just release it into the wild. And then it happened. And there's so many stories like that, somebody was on, I think Sherilyn Kenyon talks about how she was on her last stamp. And this was the last proposal she was going to send out because she was out of stamps. And it hit. So, that's just.
Well, and this goes back not so much to marketing, but writing and believing in yourself is, I've seen panels with New York Times bestselling authors who have multiple book deals and $1 million sales and movie deals and all that sort of thing. And they all to a person said, yeah, I got published before that, maybe 4 or 5 books. Tess Gerritsen had been published by Harlequin and Silhouette and everything, but she didn't hit until she wrote a book that she didn't care what anybody else thought about it. And Steve Berry, who writes the Cotton Malone books, he'd written 4 or 5 books. He'd gotten published. He was established author, but it wasn't going anywhere until he wrote Cotton Malone. And he said, I wrote Cotton Malone for me. And the infamous or famous Diana Gabaldon said the same thing. She didn't write it for anybody but herself. And so sometimes you just have to write what you believe in. And like your example, Gail, put it out there and see what happens.
So let's actually shift now, because we've talked a little bit about the fact that this really is the publishing business and the writing business. So we've talked a lot about how do you get in front of people? How do you get out there? How do you do some promotion? How do you manage your social media, your brand? Well, let's talk about the fun side of it, which is paid promotion. And this is the part that everybody wants to go and say, wait, you want me to actually have to spend money to make money? And the answer is yes. And what I was listening to something the other day where somebody was talking about in terms of marketing really should cost you nothing, because at some point you feed the engine and the engine is turning it back over. No, you have to plan to invest a certain degree of money and a certain degree of capital in advertising and marketing. And again, we're back to, we don't know what part of our resources work or what part of our resources don't. But there's a lot of ways that you can blow a lot of time and a lot of money if you don't put in the work first.
Right.
So as we start thinking in terms of, and paid promotion is not just running a Facebook ad. There's a lot of different ways to actually do promotion. And if you're doing thoughtful and informed paid promotion, you're getting it out in front of the right audience. And that, I think, is a lot of the time the first challenge is, who is the right audience? So, Gail, I know you do a lot of stuff with outside of, just ads, with blog tours, things like that. So what are some of the more effective ways that you've got in terms of paid promotion, things that you do that are outside of just running straight up Facebook ads?
Well, the first thing I want to say is, you mentioned some people think that if you just put a good book out there, you don't need to do any, and marketing should be free. And I always point them at Procter & Gamble, which is a huge consumer products company, and say, if Procter & Gamble feels the need to market toilet paper, which theoretically everybody needs and everybody uses, then I think any product that's out there needs to have a marketing budget, because you can't count on it being intuitive if you want them to buy your brand. So you're right. I have tended to, I've used some Facebook and Twitter ads, but where I've really put the effort has been in mailing list builders like Prolific Works and BookFunnel and Book Sweeps and Story Origin, where you put short stories, novellas, excerpts out there for free. And if people want to read them, they can download them and capture, and you capture their email, they get to opt in. And that has been tremendous in growing my mailing list very quickly with a very low opt-out afterwards. So that means that the people aren't leaving after they get their freebie. That's really important. They're sticking around. So building your mailing list is a big thing. Blog tours. That's where you either do the legwork yourself to find blogs that write about the kind of thing you write and track down the owner and say, hey, I have a new book coming out and it's right up your alley. Can I send you a guest post? Could I send you an excerpt? Would you be willing to feature a cover reveal? Or you can hire a group that already has those relationships with bloggers in your area, and you pay them to put it out to their group of bloggers and say, hey, we got this new book coming in. Who wants to host it on their blog? Either way, you're getting in front of blogger audiences. And when people are loyal to a blogger, it becomes like a trusted friend. They trust the blogger to give them honest reviews, to only maybe recommend things that they think are on the up and up. And so getting a chance to be on their blog in front of their audience is that's very valuable real estate, because they're sharing their friend group with you and you don't want to mess that up. So I would say that blog tours and mailing list builders have been two of the most reliable and successful things. And again, once you do a guest post on somebody's blog, once they have featured your book or written a review about it or had your cover reveal, it's out there forever. And now your Google Trail, when somebody puts in your name, the title of the book, whatever, all that shows up. And the more you show up, the more search engines and Google and all those things say, oh, this person is out here a lot, therefore they must be popular. People are looking for them. Let me show them to more people. So you want to have a lot of stuff come up when people search on your name, good stuff. And This is one way to do it. Yeah, good stuff.
Which again goes back to Wheaton's Law.
Something really important before we get away from it, because you both touched on it. But Jim, you mentioned that we've already talked about how you don't know which half of your marketing is bringing in results. And what's really fascinating about the world we live in right now is that that's changing. It's still true. If you put a television ad up or an ad in a magazine, you have no way to know if it's effective. But everything Gail's just been talking about, or almost all of it, if you're porting names into a funnel, you can set up on your mailing list multiple funnels for each different stream. So you know exactly how many people are coming from Prolific Works or how many people are coming from Story Origin or whatever. So you can actually calculate how much you're spending a month on Prolific Works and how many people you're getting from that. Is it worth it? And that's why in particular Facebook ads has become such a big thing, because you can actually do it so that once you've laid down the initial learning investment, you get an ad that's working and you literally are profiting every day from that ad, and you know how much. And that's changed this game a lot.
Well, so when we look at this, and I'm glad you brought it up that way, because here's one of the questions I wanted to throw out there. What's the better investment? So if I'm doing paid promotion, am I better to invest that paid promotion into a particular title, like the first in series? Am I better to do that paid promotion to get people onto my real estate? We talked about my website. My mailing list is my real estate I control. Where's the greater ROI? Well, my answer is you probably are looking at a blend of both, because everything should point you back to the mailing list. But if you're doing some ad spend, because Stuart, I know you do a lot of ad spend directly to first in series.
So the answer is my favorite answer. It depends, because it depends in this case on all the usual things, your genre, your niche and all that, but as well as, for example, whether to spend your money on a Facebook ad or on prolific works is almost apples and oranges, and which way you go will depend on what your strategy is going to be. So if you're on Facebook, for example, all my Facebook ads point to the first book in a series, because in order to mathematically make money off of it, you have to bank on read through, and you have to calculate. Ideally, you calculate out the read through, so you know how much one sale of the first book is actually worth for the whole series. Otherwise, it's not impossible. There's always exceptions, but it's really can be very difficult to make. As an example, I run one ad for the first book in my Parallel Society series. So that's the book's The Infinity Caverns. So I run at $10 a day on that ad, and if I'm just going off that one book, one sale of that, and it's just it's the ebook that I promote. The ebook I get $2.75 for a sale, which means I'd have to sell 4 of them every day, and I would make 10%. I'd make all my money back, my $10, and about another $1. Okay, but some days you're gonna, and that's average, because some days you're gonna sell a lot more, and some days you're gonna sell less. But you'd have to consistently do that. So that means you'd have to sell 120 books of that title off of just a $10 ad. It's not hard, but it is hard to pull that off. However, there's 4 books in the series. So if I get one reader who reads all 4 books, that's one day's worth right there. And suddenly I don't have to sell to 120 different people. I only have to sell to a quarter of that are going to actually go through if my read through is strong enough. And so if you don't like playing with spreadsheets and numbers, this can get overwhelming real quick. But you have to get a little comfortable with that. But if you're not comfortable with it, get comfortable with it, because this is your business and this is how you're going to make money. You've got to look at this stuff. So I could go much deeper down the rabbit hole. I'm trying to not get too heavy here.
But sometimes I think that's why it's easier for someone to start with something like what Gail recommended, the mailing list builders and those sorts of things, because if you're doing a mailing list builder, for instance, that's directed at Halloween, there was recently one that Gail and I both participated in. We're both in a Halloween anthology, which is right over my shoulder. And it was a Halloween and horror sort of thing. So you knew automatically that anyone who signed up for that work, that prolific works, was interested in that topic. So already you're ahead of the game. You're preaching to your choir of people who are already interested in this thing. I would not have put something, light and fluffy, or something, that was not, had no, suspense or anything. I would not have put it in that, because those readers are not there. Now, those people may read those things too, but it's guaranteed that they're there because they like the spooky. So you already know that those are your people. That's your tribe. So when you get your mailing list building people, yes, you're going to have some of those people drop off the list because they're there for the freebie, or they're there for whatever present is at the end. But the percentage that drops off is a whole lot smaller than if you did just sort of some book blast thing that was generic and multi-genre and whatever. So targeting those into suspense or male romance or contemporary or urban fantasy or things like that, and starting small with that to build to a mailing list is one of the easiest and first steps, least intimidating steps anyway, for most people, because then you're directing people who want the kind of things you write to your real estate, as Jim put it, to your website, to your newsletter, where they're going to get what they want, which is the spooky, right? And
it's also not very expensive.
Exactly.
I think Prolific Works is like $20 a month. So spending $20 a month is a lot easier on your soul than spending 150 a day and having to cap. It takes, you have to build up to that.
Yeah, totally.
But the other side of it is that the nice thing with paid ads is that the readers I get through that are not coming for a freebie because they're not getting a freebie. They're buying the book. And obviously I make money, but the point is they are book buyers right off the bat. And so if they like your book, they have no problem spending more money. And that's nice too.
Right.
Well, I think I mentioned things to, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
I was going to say, one of the things that is also just sort of a watchword in small business marketing is that your mailing list is your retirement. And what that means is Facebook could go away tomorrow, Twitter could go away tomorrow, but your mailing list of opt-in people, they have selected you, they have given you permission to be in touch with them. You own that. Even if you change mailing, providers, nobody can really take that away from you. That's yours. And so in addition to all these other things you could do, that's why it's so important to have that core mailing list so that if everything else disappeared tomorrow, you still could get in touch with those people who wanted your stuff badly enough to give you permission to contact them.
Well, and so one of the things
you have to have a multi-pronged approach. You can't, you're never going to succeed for the most part with just one. I'm talking Facebook ads because I do a lot of it, but I also have a little bit of Amazon ads. I try to get in BookBub promotions. I have a mailing list. I do Prolific. I do I have a marketing budget and I spread that money around in different ways because you have to. I mean, you're trying to get all those touches as Gail was talking about earlier.
Well, and there's different strategies that come into play. And one of the things that I am a believer in, because if you've only got one book out there, running Facebook ads is going to cost you. It's ultimately going to be a financial loser. Now that's not saying it's not part of the strategy, but I personally believe if you don't have any books out there, you're still working on them, or you've only got a couple of books out there, investing the time and money mostly into building the list. Because once they're on the list, you're not paying for them again. Once they're in your ecosystem, you're not paying to market to them every time. But it also gives you a good tool to use to build your lookalike audiences if you've got a large enough list. It gives you a tool by which, back to those relationships with your other authors, you can do the newsletter swaps we talked about. Because if both of you are investing in the list, an investment doesn't just mean writing a check. Investment means the time, the relationships, all the other resources it takes to build and market. I think if you're building that list first, it becomes a much more effective tool for your long-term tail. But I still believe that using the Facebook ads, or Amazon ads, or some of the other social media platform ads, and Pinterest ads. I've had good luck with Pinterest ads on certain things, certain products. I've even had some luck with Reddit ads. But if you are targeting the right people with the right product and the right message, with a mixture of getting some of them onto your list and some of them straight to buy my book, and even sometimes with the ads, all you want to do is see the ad. I don't necessarily want them to click on the ad. I just want it to keep popping up. So that way, when they do click on it, they've gone from cold to warm traffic, or they've gone from warm to, I keep meaning to go, oh, it disappeared on me again. I'll wait till I see the ad again. Mm-hmm. Or that reminds me to go hit somebody's list. So they don't have to click on the ad for it to be a benefit.
Part of that is that as writers, we need to recognize that 99% of us are not household names. And so your efforts are, yes, you want them to sign up for your mailing list. Yes, you want them to buy your book. But ultimately, the first thing to do is they got to even know you exist. And that's what all these things are about. And the different costs and levels of interaction are just bring about different types of readers, all of which are good. They're just different. So there are freebie hunters who may never buy your book, but also may actively promote you to all their friends who will buy your book. Mm-hmm. There are people who I sell sell directly to through a Facebook ad, who will never sign up for anything. They don't want you to know about them. They just want to buy everything you ever write. And that's fine too. And that's why the going back to what we started with, the conventions, because that's a whole type of person. And some of those people have become diehard fans of mine, but they only buy books in person. So that's it. The only time I get to sell to them is when they are at a convention I'm at. And then they'll be like, okay, oh, you've written 5 books since I saw you 2 years ago. I'll buy all of them, because they have to have them signed. They want it all very personal experience.
And if you are one of those people, we love you.
We as writers,
yeah, and we will ship to you.
But we as writers are not. We don't want to be picky about that. We want them all. We just need them all to know we exist, so they can join us however they want to.
Well, one of the other things that's great about the prolific works kind of thing, where you don't just put your book out there and hope somebody stumbles on it. You sign up for themed giveaways, and for some of those are invitation only, and those invitations come when you get to know other authors, and they say, hey, I'm doing a romance collection on prolific works. Do you want to be in it? But there are also ones that are publicly available for authors on the site to sign up to. And so you look at it and you go, oh, this is about monster hunters. Oh, this is about male romance. Oh, this is about beach romance, or whatever it is. And if you fit the category, and you do have to fit the category, then your book is out there, and the theme brings readers in who go, I like reading about beach romances. And now they may never have heard of you, but they came in because they like the general theme. And the fact that you are on that page with 50 other book covers, some of whom might be really big sellers, it's kind of a social proof that says, well, they must be mostly okay because they're here. Doesn't exactly work that way, but that's kind of the consumer impression of it. The big thing is that the theme brings them in, and now you're getting readers who at least see your book cover, if not click on it and give you their email address and download your book and maybe follow that book to all your other books, because they like that type of book. And that's really valuable.
Well, and I think so many of these things like Facebook ads and BookFunnel and AXP and things like that give us an opportunity to segment marketing in a way that previously was not available to us. Mm-hmm. Because just that exact example of saying, oh, I have a book with witches in it. So here are a whole bunch of, for October, here are a whole bunch of books with witches in it. Well, I'm going to put my ad in that because my series is got witches in it. And so I know that somebody who's looking at that, who's clicking through those, by virtue of the fact that it's this promotion, the people who come to it are already inclined to like what I write. Mm-hmm. So as you say, Gail, it's a niche marketing that in some ways was not available to us before.
That's actually one of the reasons I think Facebook ads are so popular, is the ability to target is unparalleled. You can not only target locations, you can target specific locations in the world, age groups, gender, and just keep narrowing it down. But you want to target women who are 52 to 67 who love witchcraft and are readers.
And who are also
own a Kindle.
Yeah.
You can, boom, you do that, and there's the 340,000 people across, the United States who fit that category. And that, so your ad is literally it's not going to go to, guys who like football and don't read. It's only going to go to the people who would actually, and that's one of the ways that's really powerful. And something likewise that's also interesting, and I've just started experimenting with and is effective with Facebook ads, is I've started running a Facebook ad for my mailing list funnel. So I'm paying every day to give this out to the same categories I normally would try to sell a book to, and say instead, sign up and you'll get the free book. And so far, that's mathematically it's looking pretty good. And I've only been doing it a short period, so there hasn't been enough time to see whether it's going to produce read through sales. But the point of that, besides that, that's another avenue that you can do, is something we all are constantly forever doing, is experimenting. You're going to try this. You have to be willing to put in a little money. This may fail for me, and I may end up losing 50, 60 bucks, $100, depending on how long I let it run. That's part of marketing, is trying something and going, well, that one didn't work. I lost some money there. And which is why you have to be willing to invest money in your business. Otherwise, what are you doing?
And things change. Just because it works today does not mean it will work in 3 months. Or and other times something will work for years. It's just fire and forget. And then all of a sudden one day it doesn't. I mean, and sometimes that's the algorithms are fickle, and sometimes that's the people are fickle. So going kind of that next step, if you're looking at those paid promotions and you're looking at those tools, how do you decide how much of a budget you start with and ramp up? Because one of the things that, and I've dealt with this not only from a writing perspective, but from a lot of different products. Somebody walks in and goes, I just want to go sell a whole bunch of this right now. I'm going to go pour a bunch of money at it. The algorithms don't work that way. It's time, because the algorithms have to learn. Even though you can niche down, I mean, you can get more specific. I think if you've never run a Facebook ad, but you want to know how Facebook runs, just you don't have to pay for it. You don't have to actually run it. Go look at the data, how it's collected, and understand how you're being profiled and why.
When Facebook first started, this is a quick side note, but I found this humorous. When Facebook first started running its ads, somebody wanted to see how far they could drill it down. And I don't know if you can still do it this way, but back then they were able to drill it down to their college roommate. And that was the only person who was going to get the ad, nobody else. And so he started messing with his roommate by making Facebook talk to him directly through the ads. It worked for like a week and until the guy figured it out. But the point was, you could drill it down back then that much. Facebook, I think now they kind of don't want you to do that because it's a weird waste of money, I guess, and they want to make their numbers look good. But
if you drill down. In a lot of ways, that's very similar to back in the day. What would happen if you were handling the marketing for a company and you sent out a paper mailing list and a paper newsletter, and you often bought the list from list brokers, and you would segment it. You wanted these zip codes, and you wanted this income, and there would be all these different indicators, not everything, but a lot. You could, if you needed to, get one side of a street and not the other side of a street. And, you looked at, if you knew who your audience was, that they were a certain ethnicity, a certain age, a certain gender, a certain income, a certain educational level, that they lived in certain zip codes, you could be pretty darn precise. And I remember doing this when I ran the PR department for a hospital. We just bought the mailing list based on those kinds of very public, but impersonal demographics. And we sent out a newsletter about a certain health condition, and we got this irate phone call from a lady thinking her doctor had violated confidentiality and told us to send them a newsletter about her husband's condition. And I could not convince her that, no, we just bought them on a mailing list because of these demographic things. It got that weird.
Well, and I mean, that's sometimes your marketing can be too effective.
A little too.
I mean, and there are times, but I mean,
but to answer.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you were the initial question was about how much you should spend and all that, and we never actually answered you, so I thought I'd get to that.
Let me guess. It depends.
It depends. Yeah. Well, it kind of does. I mean, first, obviously, it depends on how much you are comfortable spending. You obviously don't want to. you should not, I would not recommend taking out a small business loan for an author. that's just, the numbers don't, but so you don't want to get ridiculous, but at the same time, there's another group of writers who seem to think they can do this all for free, and yet quickly within a week or two be a full-time author, and that's not going to happen either. You need to find an amount of money that you can basically. I think of it, the initial steps. I think of it like when I before when I could travel, if I go to Vegas, I had a set amount of money I was willing to lose throughout the day. And ideally, I didn't lose it. Ideally, I ended up with more money than I started. But if I lost that money, that's fine. And that's what you have to do, because that's your learning money. You're paying to learn. Even if you have $10,000 a month, I wouldn't put that into a Facebook ad right away, because you need to learn if the ad is effective. Do you have the right picture? Do you have the right copy to go with it? Once you have something working, then you want to start feeding more money into it. But you can't just throw money in and have it work.
And there's a lot of science behind ramping up ramping up those ads, because there's an ad that can work very effectively at small money that becomes a huge drain at large money. Had it happen.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, we've dealt with that. I've dealt with that many times in the past, where it's, oh, well, at $20 a day, I'm getting 50 in sales. I'm getting a net 50 in sales. Why don't we go to $100 a day? And then all of a sudden, there's no sales, or there's no result, whatever your intended result is. And so there's a lot of science behind how to do that, how to ramp that up.
And you touch on that a little bit in your Author Essentials book, Jim. And I thought that was the way you handled it in your book was very effective in talking about ramping things up, because, all of these things can be effective, but you kind of have to dip your toe in a little bit to each one of them, see which one you're comfortable with, see which one works for you, and don't. Stuart's absolutely right. Don't overwhelm yourself with one thing too big at a time. Just start small and see how it goes for you.
Well, and even with things like the blog tours or the mailing list builders, every organization has a sweet spot. So there are some that you find work really well for romance, but they don't work so well for urban fantasy, or vice versa. Or they work really well for gay romance, but they don't work well for anything else. And so it also takes some trial and error and some research to say, okay, this book is going to go with this tour company, but this book is different enough that it's going to be a completely different tour company, and that's okay. That's what they specialize in. That's who their bloggers are. That's who their mailing list is. And so you have to really look at it very carefully by who the audience is of the tour company or the bloggers or whoever else you're working with, so that you're matching them and not just trying to do a one size fits all, because that's not going to work effectively for you.
Well, and I think what all of us are saying in both part 1 and part 2 of this is what we're doing here as writers. Yes, we're writing books and we love our books, and we're doing our best to package and create our books so that they're appealing and that people want to buy them. But we're not just writers. We have to be business people too. We have to treat our job as writers as a job and as a small business. And I think a lot of folks look at it as a magic wand, oh, I'm going to write this book. And like Stuart said earlier, I'm going to suddenly be, prolific and wonderful, and everyone will cluster around and want me to sign their books. Yeah, no. And people who have overnight successes have usually been at it for 20 or 30 years, and then they, hit, but it seems like an overnight success. It's like anything, just like with music, just like with inventions or anything. It's a business, and it takes time to build it, and it takes attention. And I think so many writers who I've seen or heard talk to all of us, well, how do you do that? How do you make it? What's the magic bullet? Well, the answer is there's not a magic bullet, and there's a lot of trial and error, and you have to be willing to try things and explore things, because what works for Stuart probably won't work for me. Some of what works for Gail is going to work for my books, but not all of it. Mm-hmm. And some of what works for Jim might work for me, might not. And a lot of what I do may not work for any of them, because I have romance in my books. Gail does too, but that's why some of the things Gail and I do could parallel. But a lot of readers who would read Stuart's or Jim's aren't going to want to read mine because they get romance in them. So it's a lot of trial and error.
And I think some of it also comes down to knowing what you want from your writing. Some people just are in love with this story and they want to tell it, and maybe it's the only book they're going to write. It's the story that they just can't wait to get out of their head, and they never intend to quit their day job, and they just want to do this maybe a little bit on the side and get the gratification of getting some nice reviews, maybe a little pin money, but they're really not in it for the money. They want to put the story out there and hear back from people that they enjoyed the story, and that's perfectly okay. There's no wrong level to be a writer. You don't have to go into this intending to make your whole living from it and quit your day job. But some people really, really, really want to make their money and make their living writing books. Well, then you are effectively starting a small business and you have to treat it as such. So a lot of it does come down to, what do you want out of writing the book?
And I mean,
I think along that same, along that same line, two quick thoughts. One is that if you're one of these people who thinks, I hate marketing, I don't want to do it, or I don't like dealing with the numbers and all that, my answer is learn to love it, because you're going to be doing a lot more of it than you will actually being creative and writing. It's more of
or be able to pay somebody to do it,
selling those widgets. Well, if you can pay somebody, if you're making enough money off your books to pay somebody to do it, then you've already doing something right, or you've hit the magic, you've lucked out. But for most people, you're going to have to, but even if you're paying somebody else to do it, you need to understand it. Otherwise, that's how you get ripped off. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is to writers, I want you to really listen to this, because you see panels, you see interviews, and people, especially now with indie authors, there's all these people come on and go, oh yeah, I put out my book 3 months ago, and now I'm making 6 figures a month and all that, and it's part of what feeds this idea that anybody can make a mint. But the key thing, and this is again understanding business, when people say that person is pulling in 6 figures a month, but they're not taking that home. That's gross. They might make $100,000 a month, but they spent $99,000 in ads to make that 100, so they only made $1,000. Understand that. And that just because somebody says they made $1 million doesn't mean they have $1 million.
Or the other piece of that sometimes doesn't get said, or it's way in the fine print, is that this person was already famous before they wrote their book. Mm-hmm. So they didn't have to go through the whole, who is this person? I never heard of this person. They already had a platform. They already had a following. And to see this in small business stage presentation selling. The person who was telling you too can bring in $50,000 a night when you sell on a stage, didn't tell you that for 20 years they were a 6 or 7 figure performer for a Fortune 500 company and top salesperson in the country. They didn't just learn how to do this by taking an online course. And so sometimes there's that mirage going where maybe what the person is saying is true, but they didn't tell you the whole story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, one of the things I will throw on there, and because this is a conversation I had with somebody not long ago on the nonfiction side of things, because they've written a book and they were like, well, I thought this would bring in a whole lot of business. And I'm like, you've done the first stage of the work. What other ads are you running? What other things are you doing? Like, but I wrote the book. Okay, so you have a tool. How are you telling people it exists? But I wrote the book. the reason for all forms of promotion, whether it's paid promotion, whether it's social promotion, whether it's organic reach, regardless of what it is, if people don't know, you may have the silver bullet to the rest of the world, but nobody's going to know. And one of the biggest things that comes out of this is everybody being afraid of piracy or everything else, where really the biggest enemy any author has is anonymity. Nobody knows to steal it. Nobody knows to even look for it. Nobody knows to look at the cover. Nobody knows to look at the copy. So if nobody knows, you may have the best widget in the world, no matter what it is, unless somebody knows to even look for it.
Well, and going back to what Stuart said, even if you ultimately have the money or want to eventually outsource your marketing to somebody else, not only can you get taken advantage of if you don't know how it's supposed to work, but you can get in your own way, because since you don't know how something works, then you're giving bad instructions to this person. I've had it happen when I was the person somebody hired. They had no idea how it worked. And so they would tell you to go out and do something. And you knew up front that was not going to work. That was going to be detrimental. I just want you to do it. And they wouldn't listen because they hadn't taken the time to actually understand how the process works. You've got to know how it works before you can outsource it to someone else, so that you know they're doing it right, and so that you don't tell them to do stupid stuff.
Well, and there's also that, because what works for you may not work for someone else. If you've done the work and you understand your audience and you understand your reader and you understand who you're targeting, ultimately, at the end of the day, anybody as a writer is creating a co-creation experience between you and your reader. And as the writer, you may not know who your real reader is at the other end, but you've got a pretty good idea if you spent the time and you've talked to them. And this is another one of those things where conventions are helpful. You get to meet real readers that give you real feedback, and you get that idea of, I thought this person over here of, this age, this gender, this, and this was my reader. But all of a sudden I discovered, no, it's really this. 40% of my romance readers are male from the age of 65 to 73. And they're, you get this idea of who your real readers are. And that gives you a better tool to market to people.
Well, and back when I used to do in-store book signings, and I haven't done those for several years, in part because stores went away. But I used to play a game with myself when I'd be there for my 2 hours. I'd have my table right inside the door, and I'd see everybody walk in. I'd play a game with myself on going, yes or no, they're going to buy me or not? Is that my person? And I was wrong as often as I was right. Yes, if the person came in wearing a Hobbit t-shirt, they probably would at least listen to my pitch on my epic fantasy series. But there were other times it was the little old lady in the floral print blouse with the white cardigan that I'm looking at going, oh, she's a Jessica Fletcher fan. This is not the right thing. And she came right to my table and go, my grandson loves this stuff. And he hasn't, I don't recognize your name. He really liked this, and his birthday's coming up, and she buys everything. Yeah. So,
you just never know.
You never know. And so what I learned about that was to recognize that there is a type. And of course, that's what you're looking for with your demographics and everything. Mm-hmm. But sometimes there are people who surprise you, and they don't seem to fit in the niche, but then they buy everything you've got.
And this goes back to when you're running ads, what your social media engines understand and know about you that you may not even know about yourself, but they know who is or is not going to buy. And this is where that initial ad spend becomes really important, is because it's designed not only to succeed, but also figure out where it fails. Because that's part of that learning is, this looks like the ideal person. You told me this is the ideal person, but 10 people that meet that criteria have said no. So therefore, we're going to scale that back and we're going to do something else that we believe will return it. Because at the end of the day, Facebook wants you to sell. Facebook wants you to make money because then you will give them more money if they're productive. So if you're looking at going with Facebook just wants to make money, yes, but the best way they make money is by you making money and being a long-term customer of theirs by meeting and greeting your long-term customers.
Very true.
Yeah.
So the last thing. Go ahead, Stuart.
Well, one final thing, because we've talked a lot about Facebook in particular, that there are other avenues. Amazon has them as well, and we've talked about prolific works and other types of things. And it's I mentioned having a multi-pronged approach, and it's important for another reason, which is that you really don't want all your ad money going in one basket for numerous reasons, but in particular with like Facebook, for example, because this has been going on recently for the last few months, during the this is going to date this video, but during the presidential election, there's been an upswing in political ads that were misleading. And so Facebook tried to curb that, and in their sledgehammer approach, whatever code they put in completely decimated so many ads for authors, for all kinds of people, but basically anything going to Amazon. I had ads that had literally been running for 2-3 years, had thousands and thousands of likes and comments and social proof, just vaporized, gone.
Oh, no.
Just gone and like suddenly rejected, and you're fighting with Amazon and all that. And it was one of those moments where I was like, oh yeah, if you don't have Amazon ads running also, you're screwed. If this is the only way ad source you're making money off of, then it's not working. And they're still having little chunks of problems. They've never quite cleaned it up yet. Or if you put all your money into Amazon is notorious for changing their algorithms, and never telling you how. So you got to be prepared to kind of have your hands in several different baskets, because things change all the time.
But I think this also goes back to what Gail said earlier, is anything that builds your mailing list, which you own and control, is always going to be yours. And so, yes, take the multi-pronged approach. Yes, have a lot of legs under your table for sales and for marketing, but don't neglect that one that preaches to your choir, which is your newsletter, your mailing list, whatever, because fundamentally that's going to be the biggest leg on your table, or most reliable anyway.
I think one of the other things to keep in mind, and this goes back to what both Stuart and Jeanne have said, is sometimes when all of these platforms don't just have people approving ads, they have automated this to some extent, and sometimes that goes awry. So there are cases where, how many times have we seen a romance cover that has a guy who's not wearing a shirt? It's kind of a joke about the genre. Have you seen my shirt? Because there are all these people. And then all of a sudden, one of the platforms will kick it out as not adhering to their community standards. And it's just a guy without a shirt. There's nothing else salacious about it, but the bot didn't like it today. And, I've seen books about World War II get rejected because they depicted being mean to those bad people who were from Germany at the time. And Facebook said, oh, this is controversial. We can't have that on a cover. Okay, we're writing about something from 70 years ago. Try arguing with a bot.
Not going to happen.
Oh, you can argue.
Yeah. It just annoys the pig.
Well, yeah, so sometimes you really screw up what you're trying to do. If all your covers have shirtless men on them, and now all of a sudden the algorithm won't allow shirtless men, you're in trouble.
I just went through this, not with a shirtless man, but I just put out just this week, had released the new Nathan K book, and on the cover, there's a woman whose holding a gun. You just see her hand with the gun, and it covers some of the title. Real artsy little kind of fun looking thing. And there's in all the covers, somebody's head or something covers part of the title, just a little bit. But this one happened to cover a little bit more, but we made sure that since the gun is straight, it went with the letter N, the straight part of the N, no problem. So I thought, until they accepted the cover for the ebook, the exact same cover for print they rejected, and I had to be on the phone for hours to get them to, override it and all this. But it was a computer doing that, but trying to get a person is not always easy.
Yeah, and I've heard cases where, if this week the algorithm says that anything that has a gun pointed at the viewer is bad, okay, there goes the entire detective, genre. But try arguing that with a bot again. So be in a lot of places, because sometimes things go wonky.
Well, and that's one of the last things I want to hit on, especially when we're talking about creating these ads. Because at the end of the day, no matter what you're advertising, the most two important things are the image and the copy. And so especially if you're in romance, because there is the whole thing about you can't have, if you're doing male romance, you can't have two guys on the cover. You can't have the shirtless guy on the cover, or, there's all these things. So necessarily that cover
as they're fully clothed and just sort of happen to be standing next to each other.
Yeah,
they're fine then. Each other very well, but they can be on the cover together, fully clothed, like, oh, fancy meeting you here. Yeah, sorry.
Nice to meet you at the bus stop.
Unlike regular romance, male-female romance, where they can be in a clinch, we call them clinch covers. That passes the censors all the time. So do shirtless men with no heads. I mean,
So, we talk about the book cover that grabs, and we talk about the copy that grabs. The problem is sometimes those two things won't pass the bots, or they won't pass a particular ad standard. So one of the things you have to then look at is different copy by platform, different copy for the ad, and even sometimes using something other than the book cover as the image is much more effective than just trying to push the book. The image is to grab. And I think that's one of the other things that knowing your genre, knowing what you're working in, knowing what you're trying to market, knowing the image that will attract that market and still pass the bots.
Well, and I know
and you also have to, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know with Facebook for a while there, they had rules about only a certain percentage of your image could be text. Mm-hmm. Well, that didn't allow for book covers. And I can't tell you how many times I had to send it back. This is a book. And then it finally got back. But again, it wasn't easy. And so you never know. Go ahead.
They still do have restrictions on the amount of text, but they've now made it so book covers don't count, apparently. However, as part of the trial and error that you go through is finding what's effective for your audience, for your book. Because, for example, when I put my book covers on a Facebook ad, usually they'll work right at first for about a week or so, and then it just trails off. But if I find a somewhat related image, like a stock photo, for example, I was talking about the Infinity Caverns, the Parallel Society books. Those take place. The home base of those stories is a bookstore, family bookstore, and so I just found a stock photo of shelves of books on shelves, at a bookstore, a nice artful picture, and I put that on, and it did gangbusters. I mean, you just wouldn't have. And who knew? I couldn't explain it. I don't even remember what possessed me to do it, but except it was an experiment. And so you never know. Sometimes the targeting can be like that too. Sometimes there's obvious targeting for an urban fantasy and certain authors and all that, but sometimes you can target things that have nothing to do with your book specifically, but have everything to do with the type of person who would like that book.
Well, and this goes too to keywords. sometimes what you're doing in terms of setting up your keywords, both on your sales platform and in terms of choosing what your advertisement, how you're targeting your ads, you really have to sometimes do trial and error with that too. And, I think all of us have said in slightly different ways, you can't be afraid to try something for a week, like a Facebook ad for a week or 2 weeks, and then analyze how it worked, change a few things, and try it again. Because sometimes the ad goes gangbuster for the first couple of weeks, then it doesn't. Well, try a new image, just like Stuart said. You have to be willing to experiment a little bit, tweak things a little bit. And, a lot of it is for all of us trial and error. And so I guess the big takeaway, I would hope people do is be willing to try it and don't be afraid to change it. Even if it is working, it might work better if you do it another way.
Well, and don't be afraid to do something and find out that it doesn't work. Something may work great for one person and it just doesn't get traction for you. Somebody said to me, ads on all of these platforms work. The question is, will they work for you? Which is pretty valid. And so don't think of it as a failure if you try something and it just doesn't pan out. They tell the story about Thomas Edison failing 10,000 times before he got a light bulb to work. And somebody said, how do you feel about failing 10,000 times? He said, I didn't fail. I learned 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. And that's really kind of what we're talking about here is it's not a failure, it's a learning experience.
And the biggest challenge there is just because the light bulb works this time doesn't mean it's going to turn back on tomorrow. But and I know we've gone with the next book. And I know we've gone way long. So I appreciate everybody taking the time again tonight. I feel sure we're going to be continuing a lot of marketing conversations.
Part 3.
So yeah, I feel sure part 3 is going to be coming. But if everybody wants to say where we can find you. So Gail, I'll start with you.
Oh, I'm pretty easy to find. GailZMartin.com and MorganBryce.com, on Twitter at those names. And pretty much everything else is a combination of either GZ Martin or Morgan Bryce, and you'll find me. I'm pretty easy to find.
Jeanne?
Same with me, JeanneAdams.com, Jeanne without an I, even though it's pronounced as if it had it. And I'm mostly on Twitter and Facebook, but you can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram as well.
And Stuart?
And I know this is a shocker, but you can find me at stuartjaffe.com. I spend a lot of time on Facebook, and of course you can find me on Amazon and all the places online that sell ebooks and audiobooks and that kind of stuff.
And I'm Jim Nettles. You can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentials.net, and of course here around in the background at Continual. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us this evening. And if you guys have questions, please start shooting them into us. We're always looking to know, what do you guys want to know? We'll make up something next time. And otherwise, if you guys are enjoying this, please, share it, subscribe to the channel, let everybody else know what you're getting out of it. So we appreciate everybody, and good night.
Night.
Night.